Hey guys, what's up? Excoundrel here, and today I'm going to talk to you about this one weird trick that Tiberium players don't want you to know. I'm joking, of course. They obviously do want you to know about it. I'm a Tiberium League player myself, but we're going to talk about aggro tactics, because one part of aggro tactics especially can help you win more games, especially at the lower level. And we're going to highlight it, we're going to go over some replays, and hopefully you guys will understand a little bit more about playing the aggro side of C&C Rivals. Because it is the superior way to play, especially at high levels. Tech decks very rarely get used, and I'll talk about why during this video. We're going to learn how to play aggro, we're going to understand first missile control, which is the most important point. We're going to know when to pressure harvester, I'm going to understand point control and charge, and we're going to learn how to play reactively. Obviously, these things will take practice, and practice is the number one thing that I would recommend, just getting in there and playing games. But let's start have a look at the replays. Now, before we get into this game in too much detail, the decks are in the bottom left-hand corner. You don't have to have the exact copy of this deck. If you want to go and check out my starter C&C Rivals decks guide that's on YouTube, the decks in there will serve the same purpose as this, especially the aggro decks for NOD and GDI. Now, while the point is neutral, i.e. you either control one platform each or you have the yellow platforms, it will not charge in favor of one person or the other. It will only start to charge when someone has wrestled control of it. So my main aim in this game, not knowing what kind of deck I'm going up against, is to start charging the point as soon as possible. Now, I see the Phantom comes out. That gives me an idea that he's running a NOD air deck, at least with heavy air tech units. He just used 100 Tiberium to take out 90 Tiberium's worth of units on my end, which actually gives me a net positive trade overall. I also know that he has spent 100 Tiberium on a single harvester, which means that he's probably pretty low on Tiberium income in general, which allows me to start spamming some more Venoms, getting onto the field, knowing that I can probably win with sheer volume of numbers because he has an expensive deck, and he had just spent 100 Tiberium in the early game. So I won that first point just through knowing that I could outpressure him with numbers due to what he has spent and me predicting the amount of income that he currently has. The next point capture is going to get a little bit spicy, so I need to pause it and talk about some of the things that I've done to make sure I ensure I won this second point. So look at the things highlighted. I moved my harvester onto the bottom right point because at this point, if I lose with the Infernos out, I've lost the game. So the harvester becomes a point contesting unit for me. I've just noticed that he's spent an Inferno missile. He's also gearing up to use it on my Chem warriors. So I try and sneak some attack bikes down to the bottom left pad versus his Phantom, which won't be able to respond. I then know with the only Phantom on the field being on the bottom left pad, I am safe to get a Banshee out onto that top point and contest and get the second missile. It was a really complex game, but let's go over the main points of that game to understand what I did specifically to win. Now, we understood that 100 Tiberium investment into a Phantom on the first missile was a huge investment. I was able to use laser squads to counter that nicely and then flood with Venoms to make sure I was contesting the points properly. I then realized that there was no way that I won versus Infernos, so I did all the things that I talked about, but specifically using my harvester to contest a point was a really big reason why I came out victorious. What did I do wrong that game, though? I didn't scout. It was hard versus the militants. I didn't pressure the harvester after the first point, specifically because he was investing a lot into early aggro. And I had some awful Tiberium missile use. We didn't brush on it because it was that bad, but it was terrible. So those are things that I would have improved from that game. Let's take a look at my GDI game. You can see the decks in the bottom left-hand corner. Pause the screen if you want them. This is just the classic aggro GDI deck. Now, this guy opened up Bike Rush onto my Harvester, which I waited out very patiently, thinking that this is always an issue versus Oksana. Oksana with attack bikes can be quite difficult in the early game. So I went for the missile squads. Now, look what I do initially. I am keeping my rifleman there and not chasing after the attack bikes because I'm very happy to just charge the point and then pressure his harvester and scout for a double harvester. Not that I thought a double harvester was a thing because of the attack bikes opening. Now, the buggy is obviously an issue, the chem buggy, but I waited out and went for the predator tank, which absolutely decimates chem buggies. So in the meantime, while this whole thing has been going on, I have constantly been charging the missile, putting pressure on him immediately to have to react. I see the Chem Warriors come out, and the best counter for those that I've got is the Talon. Now watch my Predator in the bottom left-hand corner pressure his Harvester. Now, he has to now think of two things. He has to either contest the point or try and defend his harvester. And he is obviously conflicted between the two of them because I'm able to get 2 harvester kills for free after the first point. This makes it very difficult for him to know where to spend his resources, and as I head back for the harvester, he doesn't even move his Banshee, and unfortunately by the time that the attack bikes come out, I've already won the missile because he was just so conflicted between going for the harvester and trying to contest that second point. But that is what getting the first missile does for you. It puts pressure on your opponent, because they have to react to the second missile. They have to get their win condition onto the table, otherwise they just lose the game. So what did we do well that game? We defended our harvesters and we scouted really well. We waited out the counter for the chem buggies, we charged up the point really quickly, and we left our riflemen on the point to maintain that charging. And we pressured the harvester after the first point really well, making it difficult for him to react to that second point contest. That was a really clean game, and that is exactly what you want to do with an aggro deck in Command & Conquer Rivals. Right, let's check out another Nod aggro game that I played. This one again was a fairly simple affair, but it has some key learning points that we need to talk about. Decks in the bottom left-hand corner. Check the Giga Cannon, the Confessor, and the Cyborg in this guy's deck. Count how many of them he actually gets onto the field. So he opens up with attack bikes in a defensive position, which is very odd to begin with. So I've scouted with my missile troopers, seeing that he's only got 1 harvester on the field right now. The second missile troopers that I highlighted are constantly charging the point while I go aggressive onto his harvester. I then kite them backwards away from the flame troopers, but also to maintain control of all 3 pads, ensuring that I get the first missile, even if he got those units onto contest. Here is where the mistake was made from my opponent. He went for second harvester. Watch what I do with the flame troopers in the top corner of the map. I leave one of them alive, taking a population cap space up for my opponent, and also meaning that now the double harvester is out, he actually doesn't have enough population cap to contest the points with all of my the aircraft that I have on the field. There's nothing that he could do. He just didn't have the population cap space to contest because I left that random flame trooper attacking my base, and I capitalized on my opponent's mistake. That was a pretty simple game. We scouted well, we maintained charge on the points at all times, and we reacted with the venoms, as well as leaving up that random flame trooper taking up a pop cap space from my opponent. It was a pretty easy game, but you can see how powerful this tactic is when it is used right. Alright, let's take a look at another game that I played with the Nod aggro deck. Again, decks in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see exactly what I'm going up against. Look at this guy's tech-heavy deck. Now, I want to point out a couple of things in the early game that really gave me a solid lead here. I don't try and stop the harvester aggression. I actually want to put my pressure on charging that first point ASAP. Now, I actually get there too late to kill my to stop my harvester from getting killed off, which is fine, but I do see that he invested a load into 2 sets of shockwave troopers, which means it's very easy for me to react and go with attack bikes, and I'm just blessed to find that he goes for a double harvester, which nets me a harvester in return here. He didn't react to that first point being charged, so that immediately puts the pressure on him. And again, he is now behind. He's having to constantly react to what I'm doing on the map, and that includes when I shove this Banshee out, it's also starting to pressure his harvesters once more. He actually does have a response for this for the Hammerhead, but that is 100 Tiberium invested into a Hammerhead, and he's still just trying to get those double harvesters out. So while I aggress onto those shockwave troopers and make sure I'm still maintaining control of all these points, by the time his Kodiak's even out, I've already won the game. He hasn't even got the tech units out, and that's what I really want to drill home to you guys. If you can play this tactic properly, it doesn't matter if your opponent has got all these tech units that you don't own, because they'll never bloody build them. They'll never get there, and that's the point of this aggro deck. Alright, we did pretty well that game. We prioritized the first point over harvester, which isn't always going to be good, by the way. It was just good in that specific game. We constantly charged the missile, again, drilling home that constantly charging the missile puts pressure on your opponent. It takes away that resource of time that tech decks need. We pressured the harvesters with attack bikes after we saw the defensive setup with the 2 shockwave troopers because we assumed a double harvester, and we didn't overcommit to dealing with the hammerhead, which allowed us to get a very easy second missile and win the game. What I want to drill home to you guys is what I said before. Charging the missile is the most important part of this. What tech decks need is time for the economy to ramp up naturally. If you take that time away from them by charging the missile ASAP, that puts pressure on them. I'm going to show you this one last game between myself and Ember Ghost, and this is just to illustrate that you don't have to give up if you don't win the first missile. This was almost a mirror match between myself and Ember, running very similar style decks, very early pressure, although some differences. He was running quite heavy on the infantry front with both jump jets and snipers involved. I'm not going to focus on the micro in this game. Feel free to just explore the micro in your own time and understand what's happening in terms of the trades that are happening between the individual units. What I want to use this game to illustrate is the way that we contest pads and the way that we use units often to sacrifice at the right time to make sure that we have the absolute necessary amount of units on the pads to make sure that we come out on top. So I end up losing the first missile, spoiler alert. He has a really good control with the snipers on the bottom pad, and I just can't contest it in time. I probably could have done if I'd moved quicker, but unfortunately that's hindsight, and then we don't get the chance to do that. What I want you to note now is from the second point onwards, where and when I'm contesting these points. I have to deal with the jump jet troopers, obviously, so the snipers are a good response to jump jet troopers in most cases. So I'm just microing my tank away from the jump jet troopers until I buy enough time and space to make sure that my tank is safe on that bottom point. I'm now going to ignore his jump jet troopers on the top side of the map, and now I want you to take note of what I'm doing. I'm doubling up on this tank on the bottom side, which basically secures that bottom point for me. I put a sniper on the top pad to contest the pitbull. The reason I do this is because the pitbull will take forever to kill my sniper. So, in essence, what this means is that I've got a free contest on that top point if he sends nothing else towards it, which you usually won't because he's looking to be as aggressive as possible. I boost my pitbull to get on the central point, so after I take that bottom point away from those jump jet troopers, I end up winning that second missile. If I hadn't ignored those jump jet troopers, I might not have won that second missile. So I'm very happy to lose my harvester just to make sure that I'm coming out on top in terms of getting that second missile and keeping myself in the game. This next one is a good way of illustrating point contest as well. I boost my missile troopers to contest his predator, and the predator on the top side of the map kills the pitbull, which allows me to take that top back platform really easily. Again, something that you need to be aware of is just that contest of points. Make sure you're constantly contesting points where you need to. Even if you have to sacrifice units, it can win you the game. Right, hope this was a useful video, and I hope to see you soon. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and thank you very much.